Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rise Above Justice Movement, the podcast. My name is Zachary Mallory, and I am the founder and the host of the Rise Above Justice Movement and the Rise Above Justice Movement, the podcast. Today, I'll give a viewer discretion is advised due to the nature of the topics that we will be discussing. All right. So, if anybody has been following this podcast, if you've been following the movement, this name, this face, and this voice will be no stranger to any of you because I am joined by somebody that keeps me young. I'm joined by somebody who inspires me to my core. And I do not say that very lightly. This is somebody that literally keeps me going on a daily basis because I know if I did not have this person by my side, I would probably lose my ever loving shit. But with that being said, Ricky, welcome back. Welcome back.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here, to be part of the conversation. You're too kind to me. I wouldn't know what I'd be doing without you. Literally. Remember the first time I met you? And it's been the best time of my life ever since.
Likewise. And you have grown into something that I know you weren't even prepared for. If you remember right, you struggled to get to 10K
Hmm.
followers on social media. But then you started collaborating with us because then it was kind of like one of these like mutual things. Because at that time, we had just a little under 100,000 followers. Do you remember that?
Hmm.
It was like a little less, a little bit more. It was somewhere around there.
Yeah,
And now, Rise of Justice Movement is almost at 400,000 followers, or even beyond 400,000 followers across all of our social media,
exactly.
which we're on Blue Sky, we're on Threads, Facebook, Instagram. I haven't been able to figure out the Blue Sky thing yet, but because apparently you can like set your own algorithm and like all this weird things. But
Nice.
I'll be 30 this year. Shut up. I know what you're gonna say, but I'll be 30 this year. Technology and me, it's not it. Yeah, I'm used to my dial-up computers. Ricky, I know
I don't even want to know what that is.
you weren't even born around this time, but dial-up computers, and you used to not be able to be on the phone while you were on the internet. And your mom would come in and say, I need you to get off the internet so I can make a phone call. In reality, she was just going to call and argue to my grandmother or argue with my grandmother, is what it actually came down to. Anybody out there, if you know what I'm talking about, please let me know that I'm not alone in this because internet nowadays is so fast. Well, in some areas, because we need to expand the broadband service, obviously, especially to rural communities, connectivity is absolutely crucial in today's society because how do we find out what's going on in the world? Now, is there a point in time where I felt that I didn't want to be connected to the world? Yes, now is that time. But unfortunately, that's not the reality because if your life does not depend on a court decision, don't even come into my comment section trying to tell me that I'm overreacting because we're not overreacting. We're
Underreacting.
underreacting. We're not
We're not mad
reacting
enough.
enough. We're not mad enough is a key word. But speaking of which, what are you seeing across the world? Obviously, I grew up during times of war. I grew up during the Iraq War, 9/11, grew up watching like Afghanistan, and now we're seeing what's happening in Gaza. We're seeing what's happening in Iran. We're seeing what's or Iran. I always mess up on that. I
Me
always mess
too.
up. Um, but we see what's happening with all of this, and we have people here at home that are dying at very alarming rates of gun violence. We saw what happened in Louisiana. 8 children were shot and killed. Majority of them were related to the suspect. The suspect was, or the alleged suspect. The suspect was shot and killed by police. Um, which unfortunately is a saying that is more than just a saying; it's a reality. But because Breonna Taylor,
Mm.
George Floyd wasn't shot and killed, but he was murdered by a police officer.
I'm still a victim of domestic
Um,
violence.
and I just This police violence is violence. And I have shaped the Rise of Justice movement mission around giving a voice to people like George Floyd that's no longer here to have a voice of his own and to continue amplifying that story. And but speaking of which, you're amplifying these stories on social media. Yeah, you're based in Texas,
I am.
which has unfortunately one of the worst detention centers in the country, or a concentration camp, I guess I should
Hmm.
say, because that's literally what it is.
Yep.
And it is Dilley Detention Center. And anybody out there, if you follow Miss Rachel on social media, Miss Rachel has been an absolute leader in this space whenever it comes to protecting children. Miss Rachel is the Mr. Rogers of this generation. I grew up on Mr. Rogers, and I've talked about Mr. Rogers a lot on this podcast because Mr. Rogers made it a mission of his own, not just because he testified in front of Congress to advocate for public funding for public education, but also for, public media, like the nonprofit media, like NPR and PBS, which I grew up watching PBS. PBS Kids was my shit. I always had to come home and I knew Mr. Rogers was going to be on TV. I knew,
Oh.
um,
Do you
you
do
know,
you think Mr. Rogers would be a Trump supporter?
no,
I didn't grow up with him, and I
no.
don't think he would be either. I think he'd be speaking out about everything.
Oh God, oh, absolutely. He would be calling it out. And I'm going to tell you why, because they're going after the helpers. Mr. Rogers talked about the helper. Miss Rachel is the helper. You are the helper. Mr. Rogers would adore the hell out of you, Ricky.
Hmm.
And I already know that because I do. And
Oh, I adore you.
I idolized Mr. Rogers. He is somebody that inspired me. I thought he was kind of creepy. I'm not gonna lie. I thought he was kind of creepy because it's like, why is this man like asking me, will I be his neighbor? No, I don't want to be your neighbor.
Would you be my
My mom told me not to talk to strangers, damn it. But
the stranger in a red cardigan?
yes, exactly. That's the exact ones that she warned me about. Now if he drove a white van, we were really fucked. But anyway, um, just
Oh, goodness.
just thinking
God rest his
about
soul.
God for real. But you know what they say, legends never die.
Amen.
And
Exactly.
he will always be a legend, just like Miss Betty White. I grew up watching the Golden
Oh,
Girls.
me too.
Be Girl, it was way before you. I mean, it was before me too, but um I watched it first. But
Okay, Blanche.
oh no, 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 no. Oh no. I am more like, okay, here's the thing. My mom is more like Estelle Getty, which is the one that played
Sophia.
Sophia. I am more like B. Arthur,
Snarky.
and which everybody, if you follow, well, yeah, if you follow the movement, you'll see at Populist rise up a lot, which is actually my partner that I've been with for almost 8 years, and her name is Amelia, and she is more like Betty White and
Oh,
more like Rose Nyland. And with that being said, I know those of you who are listening, you can't see this, but you can go onto the YouTube and you can see this. But I actually have an ornament
oh my gosh.
that
With the
is,
cheesecake.
mhm, this is the Betty White ornament, and
Obsessed.
it, I love it. I found this not too long ago,
What does it say on the
and
cheesecake?
I gave it. Oh, on the cheesecake, it says
Thank you for being a friend. Oh.
keep calm and eat cheesecake. I don't know if you can see
Aw, how
like that.
cute. Love it.
But we found that, and I had to have it because, like I said, the Golden Girls was something that I looked up to. Mr. Rogers was something that I looked up to. Sesame Street, which do you know why Donald Trump wants to like literally get rid of Sesame Street? Ricky, do you know the answer to it? I do.
Is it because they made a episode that was based around him when he was building the apartments?
Not just one episode; they've had multiple episodes. Donald Grump. They created a Muppet that is Donald Grump. And
I love that.
he has made it a mission of his to literally attack public media
Hmm.
because he doesn't agree with it. He doesn't
Oh
think that
yeah.
it's necessary. He doesn't think it's funny. Imagine being so oppressed about a Muppet, but not children in concentration camps.
And did you see
Okay?
how he reacted to Nora O'Donnell?
Yes.
I
Oh my
mean,
God.
made me so livid. And props to her for having the courage to have to sit through that. I
Oh,
mean, that
absolutely.
was incredible, incredible
Absolutely.
work.
I know we shared a little bit about it. We shared a couple videos about it, or like one or two videos. And just sitting there, first of all, I don't know how she's sitting across from him, but anyway,
Literally.
um, I know it's her job. She's supposed to. I understand that. As a journalist, you have these journalist codes that you are to follow. I understand that. We can't choose, or I can choose as a content creator slash independent journalist slash citizen journalist, whatever you want to call me. I can choose who I want to interview, but whenever it comes down to being on the mainstream media, you can't really choose. You just gotta kind of go with the flow. You go with your assignment. And I would have hated to be Nora, knowing that she was getting ready to interview Donald Trump. But anyway, Donald Trump is not the focus of this episode. The focus of this episode is Dilley Detention Center and the ICE and DHS that is running rampant in our communities, and we need to talk about it. So, thinking back to earlier this year, we heard about Renee Nicole Good in Operation Metro Surge, which was the mission in Minneapolis and across Minnesota.
Right.
But even before that, Minnesota is no stranger to whenever it comes to violence. Thinking back, we saw George Floyd, we saw Dante Wright. Going back several years, Philando Castile, which was a black man that was shot and killed in his vehicle in front of his girlfriend and her daughter in front of the Minnesota State Fair. And then, fast forward to literally last June, Melissa, Mark, and Gilbert Hortman were shot and killed. And then also Mark, John Hoffman and Yvette, and their daughter
The
Hope,
daughter.
which I don't believe Hope was shot, but I know that she definitely jumped in front
Witnessed.
and she witnessed. And the strength that she has to continue reminds me of like Gabby Giffords, which I know you were a Giffords fellow and you did a
Hmm.
lot of work with the Giffords. And but thinking about everything that's going on right now, how do you feel about the state of the country? How do you feel about everything that's going on between ICE and DHS and these concentration camps? Because most recently, you were down at Dilley Detention Center
I
because there
was.
was an event that took place. How did you find out about the event? First of all, I already know this answer, but I want to kind of, talk about that, but also talk about your experience and being around people that are advocating for the same thing that you are. Because it's always easier to be around people that just get it versus people that don't. Like the people that are in our comment section saying, oh, they can't have due process because they're not American citizens. Well,
Hmm.
guess what? Due process applies to everybody per the Fifth and the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. If
Exactly.
they educated themselves, they would know that. Due process is so important, Ricky, that it's one of the few things that appears in the Constitution more than once.
Exactly. And they don't understand that, you know. Due process is something that we've been calling for since we've seen what's happening, the atrocities that we've been seeing here across the country, because we're not seeing it being implemented at all in many instances, in many cases. And it's happening here in Texas, in Dilley, Texas. You know, families are not getting fair hearings, they're not getting fair trials. They're being ambushed immediately while they're doing their check-ins. They're being detained and they're being transported to concentration camps like the one here in Dilley, Texas. It's where many families come to because it's a family detention center. And I don't even want to say it's a detention center, it is a concentration camp. It is not a traditional facility. Zach, this concentration camp is trailers. It's a trailer park prison for families. They're not getting adequate medical attention. They're not getting clean drinking water. And they are certainly not getting edible food. And we know this because if we look back what happened with Liam Ramos, the 5-year-old who was taken in his blue bunny hat and his backpack, he was severely malnourished. He was getting no treatment. He was rapidly declining in his health. Congressman Joaquin Castro, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett were able to gain entry, thankfully, to do a check on the facility. And they saw firsthand. You could see it in the image that was provided by Congressman Castro at how bad his health was declining. We have firsthand experiences from parents who say they are given food with, quote, worms in it, wormy food. And some Trump supporter in my comments said they were given gummy worms. He was referencing gummy worms. If they can't get clean drinking water, what makes you think they're going to get gummy worms, Zach?
Mhm, mhm.
And if that right there is not outraging you or anyone, then you have lost your humanity. You've never had any ounce of empathy. But if you think it's okay to give a 5-year-old warmy food and undrinkable drinking water, then you, my friend, are so far lost into what we are seeing with Trump supporters. You are so far lost, and you, I can guarantee you they call themselves Christians. But that is what the reality we are dealing with. And people like Miss Rachel are amplifying the stories of these individuals. We saw a family here who was detained, and they were in Dilley Detention Center. It was a mariachi group that Congressman Monica de la Cruz took to DC. And when the family was detained, they contacted her, and she said there was nothing she could do about it. Bobby Pulido found out about it, called her out on a Saturday, and they were being released, I think, the following week because she could do something about it. She just didn't want to, but she wanted to parade them around in DC as a mariachi group. And when they were detained, silent. But once Bobby Bolillo called her out on it, brought attention to it, she came down with the podium and had a press conference and tried to take all of the credit.
Even though she had literally absolutely nothing to do with it. And there's a reason for that because we have a thing called money in politics. And I've mentioned it numerous times on this podcast, but if you were older than 2010, you were older than Citizens United versus FEC, which was a disastrous Supreme Court ruling that essentially said corporations and money are humans. And it infiltrates into elections, which unfortunately is in Congress, it's in the presidency, the Senate, and then it also trickles down into like local races, even to your mayor's race, because they're still bought and paid for. And not saying that every single one of them are, because we do have some good representatives. But thinking about that, even the ones that are good, they still have something. There is still something that, and there is no such thing as a perfect politician. There never
Oh,
will
yeah,
be.
no.
There never will be. However, what we can do is we can work towards getting money out of politics. And right now we see a lot of APAC influence. We also see a
Hmm.
lot of Palantir experience or money in
Influence.
politics and
Mhm.
like influence. And sorry, I lost track of what I was saying there for a
No, you're
second
good.
because, but you know, whenever you were down there, what did you, what else did you see? And what I
When,
mean by
yeah,
that is, what did you see as far as like organizers? And you guys did like this caravan, like you did like all of this incredible things. Just walk us through that day. Like traveling there. Like whenever you got there. I was watching a lot of your videos that you were posting, and we've collaborated on quite a bit of it. But just walk us through like getting there and like whenever you do get
yeah,
there, and just
for sure.
walk us through the day.
So it's about a 2.5 hour drive for me. It's a town near San Antonio, Texas. And as I was getting closer and closer to Dili, I had the same feeling I had when I was visiting Uvalde. I didn't know what I was going to expect. I had no idea what was going to come of the day. All I knew was I was going on a mission, and my mission was to amplify what was going on and to show the world the atrocities that's happening. So I remember stopping for an energy drink so I can have throughout the day because it was going to be a long day. And I was getting 15 miles out of Dili, and I was like, It is a rural area, small town. This is all done by design. They did it here in this small rural area because they know no one's going to care. They don't think anyone's going to care. And I'm getting there and I drive up to the facility and I actually make a wrong turn. I'm actually when I turn, I'm going as if I'm getting into the actual facility and I had to make a U-turn. The guards told me to turn around. And I said, okay, sorry. And I turned back to where everyone was protesting and I'm driving up to park and I'm overwhelmed at the amount of people that's there. I'm like, it is a Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, 12 o'clock. People dropped everything to come to this caravan. It wasn't just the 956 because it was originally the 956 to Dilley caravan. It was people from San Antonio, people from Austin, people from Dallas, people from me near Corpus Christi. People from Corpus Christi were there. And I was just such in awe at the amount of support that these families had and the attention that it brought. And it was from one organizer by the name of Griselda. Griselda messaged me on TikTok and Instagram, first telling me about the 10,000 moms that were going live, reading letters from children. And then she told me there was a caravan happening to go to Dili and they were having, a little bit of discrepancies in getting the word out. And I was like, you know what? I'll make a video. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go. I have to go. You're texting me. I'm going to go. And what was amazing to me is the power of this one organizer brought national attention to what's happening, brought statewide attention because there was gubernatorial candidates there, lieutenant gubernatorial candidates there, congressional candidates there. We're all showing up for this community and for the people who are incarcerated right now in that trailer park prison. And it all happened because of a grassroots organizer who's sick and tired of it. An individual who said, not that many people are talking about it. I'm going to do something about it. And we're going to go over there and we're going to protest. And the signs that were there were illustrations from the children. And the illustrations, you can see them crying, saying, when are we going to go home? And they're behind these tall fences. And again, you can't see much of the concentration camp because it's hidden by design. But when I was there, it reminded me back of my history classes, looking back at what was happening in Nazi Germany, looking back at the movie The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, where you have the Nazi children on the other side of the fence, and on the other side of the fence is the Jewish children. But in this instance, it was us and the incarcerated immigrants who were here. And there's an image that I posted on social media that gave me that exact feeling. It was a protester, silent, watching inside the camp with the tall fences, and I wanted to cry because it's can't even imagine what it's like being inside there. What's actually happening? Because we don't know what's happening unless we have some sort of checks, like with the what we know what the congressman did, Joaquin Castro and Jasmine Crockett. But heaven knows what they did to try and make it look good. What happens when they leave? What's actually happening behind those closed doors? It's like with the Diary of Anne Frank, we only know from firsthand experiences. And that's why I'm so grateful to Miss Rachel for being in contact with the families in there because they're telling us what's happening. And it's just so sad. But to see that amount of support come together for these children and these families was an incredible experience. And it gives me such hope to continue doing what I'm doing. And afterwards, we had a community picnic and we talked about our next action.
Because the work doesn't stop with
Mm-mm.
just one event.
Nope,
It doesn't stop with just one protest. It
not
doesn't
one
just
election.
stop with one, yeah, with one election. It continues going. And the way that things are going right now, this is not, I mean, I don't want to say this is not who we are because we've had things like this happen for many generations. You know, generational trauma, like, obviously still exists. And thinking about the state of the world, you know, they say that history repeats itself. This is like history on steroids because
Hmm.
it's more, it feels like it's more intense now than it ever has been. And like you said a key thing earlier, that it's all by design. And that could not be any more true. And we see that because, and essentially what we're seeing right now is fascism wrapped in red, white, and blue and calling it a Christian.
Hmm.
Like, they're I am a progressive queer Christian myself. This is not Christianity that we are seeing.
No.
This is literally the Antichrist. This is
You
the
have a
opposite.
president who's posting an AI generated image of himself as Jesus Christ and trying to lie to the American people, trying to lie to Christians, saying that he was portraying himself as a Red Cross doctor. I mean, any person with a brain, any Christian who's an actual Christian can understand that that right there is complete and utter bullshit. You
Absolutely,
have to
100%.
be blind to not see that he was trying to portray himself as Jesus healing the sick.
Hmm.
But his base and his members of his cult are so blindsided and so far lost that they will do anything to defend him, and it's insane. It's something that I've never seen before, and it is history repeating itself. There's a line in the movie The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. I encourage you to go watch it if you haven't watched it, to people who are listening. And I want you to listen closely to what the Nazi children say. And the young boy, as you can understand, was making friends with the Jewish person in the concentration camp. And he was talking about Hitler, and his sister said, Hitler's making the country great again. We've heard that before with Donald Trump, making America great again. Look at everything that's happening. It's history repeating itself on steroids, like you said.
And also, don't forget about whenever he posted an AI generated video of himself in a helicopter
Yep,
and or
dropping
in an
feces.
airplane
Hmm.
dropping shit on people. We're not going to water it down on this podcast, Ricky. Literally dropping shit on people. I
And
mean,
content creators.
yes, yes. And it was so insane to me. And then also, whenever you go on to Department of Homeland Security, which as a content creator and as a journalist, whatever you want to call me, yes, I follow them not by choice. It's that way I can report on the bullshit that they are
Hmm.
doing. And, Ricky, I know you keep up on it too. But even like the DHS and like Border
You have to.
Patrol,
You have to.
they're posting like all this AI generated stuff, and they're like, "Oh, look, you can get a free flight to home," and blah blah blah.
They're
Um,
whitewashing their entire social media platforms, putting these images of the American flag with white children saying, make education great again, with only white children. And all
and
that is intentional.
education hasn't ever been great, first of all, which is
Exactly.
why we need to fully fund public education. These voucher scams are going to hit communities like Texas extremely hard because all it does is cater to the top 1%, just like everything else, which is why organizers across the country are calling for a general strike on May
May
1st.
1st.
No school, no shopping, no spending. If you can, I realize this is not for everybody, but if you can and you are willing to, please participate in the general strike on May 1st. It's May Day, the power of the workers. This country was built on the backs of the working class. This country was built on immigrants. Immigrants is what makes America great because that is the true America first. I was taught whenever I was going through school, oh, Christopher Columbus is this whole big, like, incredible human being.
Hmm.
Come to find out, he's not. He raped and pillaged our Native American people and stole this land.
He didn't discover
No,
shit.
no human being is illegal on stolen land.
Amen.
Period. End of story. This shouldn't even be a discussion in 2026. We're getting ready to go into May of 2026. We have the midterms coming up, which I know we'll jump into here in a second, because you have really big elections happening in the state of Texas that I really want to highlight. But we also have one here in Kansas. I almost called her. Well, yeah, Governor Kelly is termed out, which is unfortunate. Um,
Lucky
she,
you that you'll have term limits on governors.
oh God, I know, I know. But she's termed out, and she will. Well, essentially, what they could do is they kind of have term limits. They can do two terms consecutively, and then they have to take a whole term off, so like 4 years, and then they can run again.
Oh, okay.
So essentially, they have 8 years. They can pause, and then they can run again for another 8 years, and it kind of like continues on. Now, Governor Kelly's already in her 70s, so I obviously don't see her
Running
coming
again.
back again. But Hey, stranger things have happened. I mean, Mitch McConnell is still in Congress, or he's still in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of which, there's a really good candidate that's running to replace Mitch McConnell, and she's coming on the podcast. I'm not going to share
Ooh.
who it is just yet because I'm excited. This is going to be a really big one for this podcast, but I am excited. She's running, and
And you also need to interview the person who's running to replace Nancy Pelosi. I'm not even going to butcher their name, but you need to interview them.
absolutely. He's incredible. First of all, he really is. And I just sat down and talked to somebody who is running in the same seat that Eric Swalwell was in, which is California District 14. So that's on this podcast, and then there's several others that are coming up. We are interviewing, the next governor of Oklahoma, the next governor of Idaho, the next governor of
Incredible work.
I'm trying to think of Tennessee, hopefully the next one of Kansas. So obviously these are elections that I want to see. And I know regardless of what happens with any of them, I know it's not the last that we'll see of any of them. But you also have one in the state of Texas. I
Gina
want
Nilsa.
Let's talk about her for a second. First of all, she's a badass Latina. She really is. She's a badass Latina, but she's more than that. She's an ally to the LGBTQ plus community. She has worked her ass off. I think she's a current senator, right?
Representative.
Is she a current representative? Okay, I knew she was in either in the House or the Senate. I
Texas
know
House, yeah.
she. I know she's done some impeccable work, advocating for gun violence prevention, which Texas is no stranger to gun violence. Um, some areas more than others,
Mhm.
and I want to highlight somebody that, and I dropped the ball in this interview, but Amber, she's a judge down in the state of Texas. Ricky, I learned about her. I believe you're the one that told me about her, or somebody connected me to her. And I dropped the ball in this interview. I obviously welcome her on any time, but she was a judge and she was being attacked by the state and like other judges because she spoke the truth. She spoke her mind. And whenever I think about Texas, whenever I think about Texas, I used to have a really bad taste in my mouth whenever it came to talking about Texas, but I
And
think
you're not alone. You're not alone.
you have kind of like shifted my thought on that. But a lot of it is just because of what we see in the media and what we see in the press and what we see from people that are outside of Texas that, for some reason have an opinion about it.
And
But
people, you're not alone. Texas has a really, really, we get a bad rep. But I want to remind you all that Texas is only the way it is because of who's in power. You need to look at the people who actually live here. We are a state that's made up of predominantly Latino individuals, Latino communities. And they tried to whitewash the votes through the gerrymandering they did recently. They took out Democratic seats, and the people of Texas didn't even get an opportunity to vote on it. They did it on their own through a special session, but the amount of people that showed up overwhelmingly to talk against these maps was the vast majority of Texans. These Texans did not want these maps to get passed. There was not no more than 10 Republicans there in favor of it. And had it not been for the Democrats breaking quorum here, delaying that special session, Virginia would have not happened, nor California's Prop 50. Because of what happened here in Texas and us fighting back, we were able to redeem ourselves through what they did. And they did it in a way that allowed the voters to vote on it, which is the way it should be. It should have been like that here in Texas. And you're going to see a whole bunch of conservative content creators saying that what they did was illegal, what they did was wrong, what they did is stealing elections. But they're so silent about Greg Abbott stealing congressional seats here in the state of Texas because Donald Trump said he's entitled to them. Whitewashing the vote. If you look at these new districts, Zachary, they are taking out black and brown voices and making the districts unique towards white populations that are typically more conservative than they are liberal. And they're doing that by design. And now I'm so glad that Democrats are realizing they have to fight fire with fire because we've become accustomed as a party to try to always be right and be correct in everything. But you can't do that when you're fighting with fucking fascists. I'm sorry. You need to take the gloves off and throw a fucking punch.
Exactly. You know what my motto is, Ricky? You want to know what it is?
Tell me.
So Kansas also has a bad reputation, and rightfully so. But there's a lot of work that's happening here too. But back in like the 1700s and like 1800s, there was an abolitionist by the name of John Brown. Okay. John Brown was a revolutionary, and I consider what he would be now would be a socialist, or like a democratic socialist,
Hmm.
most definitely. But my motto is I do not fight with people that John Brown would have shot. And I say
Ooh.
that because if you look into the history of him, there was a lot there's a lot around that. And I don't want to ruin like the experience of like going onto Google and finding out about him. I'm not going to talk too much more about it, but it is true. I do not argue with people that John Brown would have shot. And this is not me saying, oh, I'm promoting gun violence. That's not what this is. It's literally just saying, like, pick your battles.
They're gonna
Don't
try
fight
and twist
people
it as
that.
that.
Oh, absolutely. They always do. Absolutely. 100%. And like, oh, well, I thought you were against gun violence and you want to take our guns. No, I want you to keep guns out of the hands of fucking children. And we need to pass red flag laws.
Yeah.
We need background checks on all ammo and gun sales. We need and also a red flag law is also known as an extreme risk protection order or an ERPO.
Purpose. Hmm.
And a lot of people don't recognize that it's literally the same thing. I always use ERPO or an ERPO, as we always say, in the advocacy sphere. But what are you seeing on social media besides the AI generated bullshit that's continues going on? But what else are you seeing on social media? Because you're seeing like a rise up, and you're seeing people rising up across the country. I believe you've been to a couple No Kings protests, right?
I
Am,
have, yeah.
am I right?
Hmm.
What has been your experience with going? Like, what do you see? Who do you see? And why do you believe that people should be attending these? Because oftentimes we see, oh, this is performative, this is performative, this is performative. They're doing voter drives at these protests.
Yeah, they are.
They have organizations that are there talking to the people, registering people to vote, registering, register wow registering people to volunteer with the organizations. And what have you seen, because you've seen communities come together, which is a beautiful moment. We need to do it more often,
Hmm.
and it shouldn't be in the form of a protest, but
Exactly.
unfortunately this is where we are because, like I said earlier, fascism is wrapped in red, white, and blue and called being a Christian. So let's let's
I
let's
am
talk.
seeing resilience. I am seeing community. I am seeing community being formed in places where you wouldn't even imagine. Places like Lubbock, Texas, and Amarillo, Texas, that are extremely ruby fucking red. People are coming out and saying, we are tired of this shit. And in America, we have no kings and we will never ever serve a king. And these protests are getting larger and larger and larger by every event that happens. And it's important that we go to these events to build community so we can have a set community for when we need a mutual aid drive, when we need mutual aid for communities that are being impacted by what's happening, like in Minnesota. We're gathering people. We're bringing people together. We're showing the world what happens when you piss off the American people. I was the one in McAllen, and I have never seen so many people come out to support their community the way I did at No Kings. People supporting the immigrant community. You saw signs of monarchs talking about immigration and how no human is illegal here on stolen land. And it's bringing such joy to my heart. You're seeing young people come out. Finally, you're having young people tune in, listening. The amount of people that come to up to me, Zach, and tell me, "Thank you for what you're doing, Ricky." I can't even count on my fingers anymore how many people have done that. And when I get that little compliment or people coming and tapping me on their shoulder, "Can we take a picture with you, please?" I only have 66,000 followers, but the amount of people that I've interacted with shows me that it doesn't matter how many followers you have because we're making a difference with people and people are tuning in and people are listening, telling me to continue doing what I do, to continue doing what we do. because our media ecosystem right now is being dominated by the far right. And you saw it recently at the incident that happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Immediately after it happened, they were texted a memo, a brief, to talk about the ballroom. Not about gun violence prevention, but the ballroom. And it's like, okay, so I guess every kid in America now who's ever experienced gun violence in their schools needed a ballroom, not a secure school. Needed a ballroom. But that's not the point. It's neither here nor there. Community is one thing that's being formed and in places where you've never ever expected it. And that's what's important to show the world and the community you're in that you're not alone. There's like-minded people. There's people who have empathy. There's people who are woke. There are people who care about the state that's happening right now, the state of the world and the state of this country, and what we're going to do next.
Hmm. Hmm. Speaking of which, what is next? What is next for you? What are you currently working on? And what should people know about you, about your content, and just walk us through like what's next for you.
The big question, well, I recently was able to have a sit-down interview with a congressional candidate here with my next congressman, Bobby Bolito, the Tejano artist. He's an incredible human being. He's going to hopefully defeat Maga Monica de la Cruz because she's horrible. And I hope to interview more candidates in the coming weeks, talk to more organizers, get more community voices, have the people's mic, hear what's going on from the people. I talked with Marcos Velez while he was running for lieutenant governor, educated the people on what the lieutenant governor does and why it's important, how he can fight to represent us. And it's really giving a voice to those who don't have one, who feel left out of the conversation, pretty much similar to what you're doing and what your movement has done, making it around the people. If we don't give our politics back to the people, there is no politics. And
Mhm.
that's what it should be focusing on. I recently did some content with Starbucks Workers United. They're still trying to get a fair contract. We're still boycotting Starbucks because it would take less than 1 day of sales to finalize a fair contract, but corporate greed is still taking over. And I want to say that again. It would take less than 1 day of sales to finalize a fair contract.
Mhm.
So giving a voice back to the workers, giving a voice back to the people, talking about May Day coming up, no work, no school, and just show the world that we're not going to take what's happening anymore.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'm seeing the rise up of people that I wouldn't even imagine would be attending protests. I've been on social media since 2011, and some of my friends that are, like acquaintances, that I went to school with are attending protests. And these are people that I never in a million years would have. I'm trying to think of how to say this politely. But these are people that I wouldn't even imagine would ever be attending. And it's like, okay, whenever we all grow up, like we have different views now. And they always, I was told whenever I was a kid, the older you get, the more conservative you get. I'm going the opposite direction. I don't know about
Same,
you, but I'm going the
same.
opposite direction because I grew up in poverty. I grew up around war. I grew up around a lot of like conflict, and I grew up around fascism, and I saw it a lot. I went to school, which those of you who listen to this podcast, you would know that I'm from the Kansas City metro area. I went to school with predominantly Black and Latino students. I saw how the SROs, the school resource officers, would treat my Black friends and my Latino friends, and then turn around and give a high five to one of the white students. Like,
Hmm.
I just saw like the same officer throw somebody literally against the wall because, oh, he's like the class, and then turn around and give a high five to a white student. And it's like, that ain't right. It contributes to the ongoing issue of the school to prison pipeline.
Mm,
Truancy, which there should be no such thing as truancy. This is an absolute fucking scam and an absolute way of getting people tricked into being into a system that they never wanted to be a part of just for skipping school. We don't know what that child's going through. We don't know what they are facing at home. They could be severely malnourished. They could be severely mistreated because of violence, gun violence, domestic violence, sexual abuse. This is not the fucking 1800s, y'all.
hmm.
And
Exactly.
even then, that stuff was still going on. It just wasn't talked about.
And it is never, ever the child's fault. I used to work in public education, and the amount of teachers that I worked with who would blame the child for not coming to school was sickening to me. I was able to do routine home visits with our truancy officer because the kids liked me. I had a great rapport with them, and I wanted to see what was going on and get down to why they weren't coming to school. And I did it because I know if it was me doing it, I'm doing it out of a sense of empathy with an open
Mhm.
mind, and I'm not doing it to judge anyone. I'm going to offer assistance. I'm going to offer help. I'm going to see if this child needs a ride on a regular basis, if we need to find a bus ride. If not, we can create one. I'm going to see if they have food at home, and I'm going to see if they're being treated okay. And there was an instance where I went one time with the truancy officer. I knocked on the door. The children comes to the door, and they open the door, and you see them with a mattress in one living room because that was the only place they had functioning air condition. Parents weren't home, and they didn't know that I was there on a truancy check. They thought I was bringing them food. I immediately called the cafeteria workers. I said, I need 5 meals, hot and ready. I'm going to go pick them up, and I'm going to bring them back over here. Here are their student IDs. I need to give these kids need food. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of these teachers do the exact same thing. Take money out of their paychecks to provide for their students. They are severely underpaid. It is a profession that is not for the weak. And to see our teachers being treated horrendously by our government, by the state government, with the voucher scam, taking money out of their paycheck, taking money out of their resources that can help these children get to school, is sickening to me.
Mhm.
And we live in a society that is judge first and ask questions later. Judging why this child's not coming to school, they're truant, okay, we're going to send their parents to prison. How are they, you think they're going to get to school now? You're going to put them into a system that is already disproportionately disadvantaged, ignored, and they're going to become a statistic because they are quote unquote truant without you realizing what the actual problem is.
Mhm. Exactly. You're speaking the absolute truth. And yes, 100%. You left me speechless on that because it's absolutely correct. And whenever I was 13 years old, I was charged with an assault charge that I did not do. And I'm no longer friend. For many years, I stayed friends with this person that essentially like lied and said that I assaulted him, which was actually a bold-faced lie. My mom watched the entire thing, but I had to go to juvenile court, to youth court, and I was on probation and I essentially got, I wouldn't say sentence, but I I essentially was convicted of an assault charge in my youth at the age of 13, getting ready to go into high school. And it was like the end of my like sixth grade or the end of my it was the end of my like sixth grade year. Yeah, this was somebody that I met earlier in that year. And the timeline's like really fuzzy because it was a really long time ago. But needless to say, I was on probation for 5.5 years for something that I did not do. And I know what I faced as a white child. And like I said, I saw school resource officers throwing black and brown students against the lockers because they were late to class, because they needed to go grab a snack, or they needed to go to the restroom, or, whatever. They were late to class. And then I saw him like turn around and give a high five to a white student. I'm like, yeah, make sure you get to class. Ha ha
Yeah.
ha. Everything's fine. As you have this child by their book bag and you're like tossing them around like a fucking rag doll. And I was introduced to that violence at a very young age. And it's a reality. And I'm sure it's gotten even worse now. I can't even imagine how it is now. I can't even imagine. And this administration continues to perpetuate violence against marginalized communities,
Yep.
specifically Black and Brown individuals. Um, but as we saw with Alex Preddy and Renee Good, it can happen to any of us. And that's the reality. This is all of our fight. This is all of our fight.
They
And
don't care anymore.
I
If
want to
they can,
see
yeah.
I want to see the outrage that people had with Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good, every time a black person is shot and killed by police, the black or the brown children that are being detained in these concentration camps, where is the outrage? You cannot sit here and say that you care about protecting children whenever you allow these children to be kidnapped, like we saw with Liam Ramos
In broad
and his
daylight,
father in broad daylight with a fucking bunny hat, Ricky. With a fucking bunny hat.
5 years old.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to be the first one to say it. I think this was the best Super Bowl that I've ever watched, or the best
Hmm.
Super Bowl halftime show that I ever watched with Bad Bunny, because there was so much symbolism. There was so much like representation on one stage
And they hate
that
that.
I fucking loved it. Literally one of the best one, and if not the best one. But I will tell you this: Bruno Mars was pretty damn good too. And I say that because one, he's fine as hell, but secondly, the other aspect of that is that was one of the last Super Bowl halftime shows that I watched with my grandmother before she passed away,
Mm.
literally a couple days later, or like a week or two later after the Super Bowl. That and I remember her being in the rehabilitation center, and she was really ill. She had septic pneumonia, so she had to go into a rehabilitation center. And I remember we were watching on like this little bitty freaking TV, and I mean like this thing was tiny, no bigger than my iPad that I recorded this show on, right? But I remember we were in her room, and she was telling everybody, shut the hell up, because everybody was in there
Oh,
talking. And she's like, I need to watch this. I need to watch this. And, the nurse comes in. She's like, okay, it's time for bed. She said, it'll be bedtime whenever I say it's fucking bedtime. Bruno Mars is on the TV. Get out of my room. Like,
I love that.
she was obsessed with Bruno Mars, just like she was with Michael Jackson, just like she was with a lot of like other musicians. And but specifically Michael Jackson, she idolized, and I grew up idolizing Michael Jackson too. And the more I learn about his story and the more I learn about him, I firmly believe he was protecting children from people like Jeffrey Epstein. I firmly believe that, and I do not. I'm gonna stop with that because I know there's a lot of conversation around this right now, but he was protecting people and protecting children. Michael was a helper. And I remember the day that he died. And I don't believe he died. I believe he was murdered by that doctor. But that's a controversial take, and I'll take the heat for it. But I'm just saying, you know, look at the signs. Look at everything that led up to it. Look at everything that yeah. We've been all over the place with this episode, but I think it all comes
Love it.
together in saying that it's all by design. Everything that's going on right now, it really is. It's all by design. And, you know, what I guess my last question to you, because I know we're coming up on time here. But what what keeps you going? What motivates you to keep pushing forward?
The hope for a better tomorrow, knowing that this won't be forever, knowing
Mhm.
that Trump won't be forever, you know, and we are coming up on America's 250th anniversary, and I think that we all need to come together and revisit and learn the Constitution, learn about our rights because we have them, and knowing that people are fed up, knowing that there's everyday grassroots organizers who are doing the work, knowing that there's content creators posting the content, knowing that we get shadow banned every single day, knowing that they're going to
Mhm.
post regardless, knowing they're not going to do it for likes, knowing that they're going to do it to get information out there. That's what keeps me going, knowing that there's people out there relying on me and you for the work that we do.
Mhm. And the work doesn't stop.
Mm-mm.
Literally content creates itself these days. I'm going to be the first one to say it.
It
It literally
does.
does. It creates itself, and that's sad because it should not be like this, like at all. I miss my really quiet days. And I'm not saying just with the Biden administration, I'm just saying just in general, like I just miss being able to actually sleep at night and not have to wonder or
Hmm.
what war are we going to get put
Exactly.
into next,
While
what
we're sleeping.
what's going to happen next? Because this motherfucker is on True Social at 3 a.m. in the morning making threats to people and talking about journalists and saying,
Threatening to wipe out an entire civilization.
well, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Somebody take this motherfucker's phone. Like, what is wrong with you? Seriously, what is wrong with you? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. And if this was any, if I'm just gonna say this, I'm critical of Democrats. I really am because they're complicit in silence too. But I'm just gonna say this, if this was a Democratic president and half of this shit was going on,
Hmm.
yeah, it would be really bad. It would be.
Exactly.
They would be trialing for treason. They would be trialing for a number of other things. They would have been impeached. They would have been removed. But because Donald Trump is a reality TV star, and we need to start calling him exactly what he is. He's not a president. He's a reality TV star. That's literally, and he even said it himself that he never expected to become president back in 2016. He said it himself. He never thought he was ever going to be president. And then that power went straight to his head, and now he's power hungry. And that's who he is. If there's anything that Donald Trump likes, he likes being the center of attention because he has a very fragile ego. He has what we call the white male ego, and he has this fragile ego that if anybody speaks out against him, he sees you as a terrorist and he sees you as anti-American. He sees you as anti-Christian. You are no more Christian than anybody else. That is like calling Jeffrey Epstein a saint. But keep that in mind that Donald Trump said, "Oh, I barely know the guy. You're in up 10,000 pictures. You're mentioned in the files that your own Department of Justice released, and you are in
Hmm.
it millions of fucking times. Millions of times. We know that you've been to the island. We know that you sold girls to him. Oh, well, we can continue going into this, but that'll be another conversation because there's a lot happening around the Epstein survivors right now, which me, I'm going to continue amplifying it because
Hmm.
I frankly do not give a damn. Donald Trump is the worst president of my lifetime. I will be the first to say it, and I'm
Yeah.
not, and I have no regrets. I have no
I can't
regrets.
stand the man. I hate him.
We have lived around war criminals for many, many years, for many generations, many decades. But Donald Trump is the absolute worst president of my lifetime. That, and I hope Donald Trump is a warning shot as to what can come if Democrats and Republicans do not get their shit together. I'm not expecting too
Hmm.
much on either side, but Donald Trump is a warning shot. He is, because that is what could come, and there will be Donald Trump on steroids 2.0.
Yep.
And that is deeply
100%.
concerning. That is deeply alarming. But other than that, how can people follow you on? So this is a good segue. But how can people follow you on social media and uplift the work that you are doing? It'll also be in the description of the episode, and then we will collab you on
Yes.
these
Super excited.
videos that I'm
Love it.
going to generate from this because I believe your voice is deeply important to me. But
Thank you.
how can people uplift the work you were doing and follow you on social media?
You can follow me on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Facebook at The Gay Liberal. My TikTok actually is the Gay Liberal, Thee Gay Liberal, because my first one was banned. And you can also join my voting group. I'm trying to get 100 people in there. I'm working with different candidates across the country, and I know people are waiting for a specific recommendation out of California. I don't have that yet. I'm still trying to look at every single candidate and figure out which one would be the best person that I would vote for. Again, I'm not from California. I don't like to meddle too much, but I'm going to do my research, hear from my audience, and see who they're going for and from there form a decision in the coming weeks. You can do that. I'll give Zach the URL, or you can do it at the link in my bio. And I'm at 42 voters, super close to 50. But I'm trying to get to 100 by May 14th so I can get more candidates involved because there's a lot of candidates here in Texas who are running for Congress, and people are wanting to know who to vote for.
Absolutely. And we will continue uplifting you. And as always, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I greatly appreciate
Thank you for
you.
having me.
And I will see you out there. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye. Oops.